So in the false matrix, everyone that entered the false matrix immediately entered what I would call catch 22. It was a manipulated electromagnetic field of the earth and beyond. So once you enter it, you immediately go through amnesia, you are distorted more and more. The longer you spend in the false matrix, the more you forget everything. And eventually it's very easy to be implanted with ideas or even things like implants, of course. So that was the false matrix. If anyone wanted to be liberated from the false matrix, they would have to magnetize their spine. Now, this is really important. They would have to magnetize their spine. How they did it? It would have to happen with breathing techniques and energy and focus and repetition until they popped open. Now, if they magnetized their spine, because spine is alignment, but in the false matrix, it was all out of alignment. It was the fallen spine. Even though we were walking straight, the planet had a fallen spine. So we are entering really catch 22. You send a being into the false matrix, they fall, and then they are fallen within a fallen system. And so it's just an illusion. But if a being managed to magnetize the spine and restore their true north, which could only happen through a lot of work, inner work, like Kriya Yoga, but inner engineering too, and other practices that we've had in the mystical tradition, including the microcosmic orbit in the Taoist tradition, then eventually they built a very powerful electromagnetic field on their own that would be stronger than the pull of the world. And that hardly ever happened. But every mystic that we know about, who, for example, went through the rainbow body activation, which we know as the Tibetan masters, what would happen? They activate the strong electromagnetic field and poof, they out of here. Because now they had their own ship, which is the electromagnetic field that pierced the veil and released them into true divine reality. And what was left behind? Usually not much. Usually, what was it? Like shoes, nails, hair, something got left behind. Or someone like Avatar Yogananda, he too had to go through the activation of his own electromagnetic field and through his rainbow body. And then they would end up so connected with the divine reality, but he chose to still be here. And then we would call it samadhi, the false self seed. And he didn't have one, but he had a self here, which was in the body. And that too could completely check out because he pierced the veil. So, do you think the controllers of the false matrix liked it when someone was making holes in their little false matrix? They absolutely hated it. And they could tell every single time, and it was rare when someone popped through that plasma. And as soon as someone popped through the plasma, they would immediately send their army of darkness, and very often led by the big boss that we call Satan, to the person who popped it open. So Yogananda describes it. He was, of course, face to face with Satan because he popped the false matrix open. You know, it's called liberation for a reason. And it's not what we usually thought, right? Because we usually thought that we live in a fine world, it's fine, it's okay. But spirituality is more like, okay, surely it leads to some kind of liberation, but not realizing what we were liberating from. We were liberating from a dictatorship that was global, and this dictatorship was the false matrix. So, if anyone managed through so much effort to pop it open, immediately they would be visited by the guards. And it was never pretty. And that's when Yogananda described his encounter with Satan and how they stopped his heart. And then his guru, Sri Yukteswar, had to resurrect him. So this is how serious things were. And this was, Yogananda lived until 1952. So that was really the dark ages. So now we don't have this. But everyone who experienced the rainbow body activation, where the electromagnetic field activated so powerfully, had these encounters. Every single mystic. Again, I always like to compare it to the great Avatar, what he said. And he said, every mystic who is liberated in this false world created by Satan will have to be face to face with Satan when they are liberated. And that was the reason. They didn't want anyone to be popping holes in their little balloon. So, when I had these experiences in 2020, I definitely had all the visitations and all the unpleasantness that goes with it. And 2020 was the liberation year for millions of us. So it was much easier than in 1950, when I think only the avatars could do it. But in 2020, we received major intervention. One day we will learn the truth about what really happened in 2020. But to describe it like this in just simple terms, it was a war that took place in the interdimensional places. And there was an agenda, not some kind of deep state, nothing like that at all. It was an agenda of the nefarious beings that mainly operated from the interdimensional spaces. And they had an agenda which was not pretty. But the forces of light took that agenda and twisted it in their favor, and we won. So I would even forget things what people called COVID as something that it was actually not what we think it was. 2020 helped us all immensely to be liberated from the enslavement codes that were in our bodies. So we thank for 2020 with deep gratitude for this incredible intervention that really, I think, was the biggest quantum leap in our reality ever, because we got liberated from this enslavement. And that was the beginning of the end for the false matrix. So once, all these different beings started to show up, of course, I got a little obsessed with it, because I thought, well, that's a problem. That's a problem for this world. If there is a being called Satan and he is real and he doesn't like when people get liberated, then we have a problem that we didn't know we had. So I was often thinking about it. I was often meditating about it. And these beings would come and visit, and it was never pleasant. So I was always talking with Yogananda, telling him, this is the biggest problem that humanity has. I personally am surprised we don't put it as the number one most important thing to tackle on our spiritual agenda. I was looking at all the wonderful things like Self-Realization Fellowship, and I thought, they've read it. Maybe they even experienced it. I don't know. But they read all about it in the second coming of Christ. Shouldn't they have like the number one concern? Hang on a second. This world was not created by the being that we think it was. Yogananda clearly says it's a false world that originally was divine, originally had a divine blueprint, but then got trapped by Satan. He spells it out exactly like I say it. Nothing hidden in what he says. So to me, it seemed like, if I'm going to be just meditating here and doing some light work, shouldn't I be tackling the number one problem? That there is Satan and in this world, and that we are trapped here by him? I want to look at the chat, because to me it was like, hang on a second. Shouldn't that be the number one thing? So anyway, so time went on, and it was in 2023 during Lionsgate. Yeah, I was like, let's just tackle the biggest problem we have here. Let's just get rid of the falseness of the world and the one who created it, and then I'll meditate and sing my mantras. So in 2023, so exactly 3 years later, and I'm going to share this experience again and again and again, and I wrote about it, and I will share my writing too because it's so important to all of us. I got visited in the middle of the night by Divine Father, and it was not just me. I know that it happened collectively, but I got to like fully experience it again. So Divine Father came, and Divine Father was speaking, and he was not just speaking to me, but you know how he is. It seems to be so personal, and yet it is so collective. And so I was laying in bed, and he was standing behind my head and flooding the entire room and my body and consciousness with Amrita, with this milky white substance. And it was the greatest bliss one can imagine. It was the most incredible divine ecstasy, that the mystics experience. And then he said to me one thing, and that's why I'm talking about it. He said, "Don't worry about Satan. Don't worry about it." And he told me more, but I didn't recall all of it. But it was funny. After I was like so obsessed with it for like 3 years, like how do we get rid of him? He just like, "Don't worry about it. It's all good." And so we know that it was the end of Satan, actually last year in 2024 on 11/11. And Satan didn't go the way that normally we would think that he would go. It was not like punishment and in hell and not, none of that. You remember how it happened. It was through oneness, it was through integration, it was reunification of all forces within this cosmos into oneness. So, happy end. Happy end. And it all has to do with the world we are now here. That's the only way. In Cosmos, we don't have such thing as like, you forever go and suffer and we hate you. That can only happen here on this planet, right? But that was introduced by Satan himself, but he is no more. But what we are left with, and this is why I'm speaking about it, it is exactly like the movie The Dark Crystal. Lynn, I think you are on the call here. You sent me the movie some years ago, and I watched it, and I felt, oh my gosh, that's exactly like the movie The Dark Crystal. It is like what's happening here. But why am I speaking about it now? Is because we still have the beings that operated the false matrix. For them, it was their existence, exploitation. Beings who there are many different beings who actually participated in the false matrix, and I made a video about it a long time ago. But just to name a few, as strange as it seems, and I always say, when we meet these beings, then that really breaks, our, I would say, limitations in terms of imagination of what's possible. So I would never share this if I didn't meet them myself. And none of these meetings are pleasant. But the big controllers of the false matrix, we call them draconians. They look a little bit like alligator beings. So they are a type of reptilians, but they're very specific. They are draconians. They are the controllers. Something like if you had like a prison cell and the guard. But we also had the demonic beings and many layers of those, of course. And so they are still active without having their source. The source is gone, and so they will eventually cease to exist, and it will be through transmutation. Transmutation is definitely the process of it. And so this is what happened last night. So these beings could have a human body, they could operate through a human who has a human body, and many different ways. They can still be invisible to us because of the technology they use. So it's a big picture and it's complicated, but because it's happening right now, I want everyone to know that, the forces are here and they are creating chaos by design, and they are chaotic themselves. They are always working the way that they've always been working. In a way, nothing has changed in the way that they work, except for two things. They have been unplugged from their source. There is nothing powering them anymore. So they're running on an empty and soon to be empty tank. The other thing is that the veil is really no more. So even though they would like to be hiding in these interdimensional spaces, all is visible now. So that's why people are seeing all the different, the UFOs everywhere around the world. So those are the differences. Now, last night was a big night for all of us here on this planet because this planet was bathed in a big geomagnetic storm. It was G3, so a big geomagnetic storm creates big changes in our ability to perceive reality. It actually always heightens our perception of reality. Some people feel massive anxiety, some people have insomnia. I found that when geomagnetic storms happen, it is much easier to have multidimensional experiences. Yeah. So, good to follow space weather. I recommend the space weather app on your phone so that you always know and always try to align with nature. Go outside, put your feet on the ground, attune. So, because it was a big night, I also hear noises, which you could hear too, and many people have heard, and they sound like the earth is making a sound. But it actually, it's funny, it happens in the middle of the night. But it sounds like there's a construction going on. It's like steel and iron, like banging against each other. But that's actually the sound that the earth is making in this geomagnetic storm. So, paying attention to all these things. So, yeah, and if you had some crazy dreams, I say we no longer dream. We now have experiences. And we have this new freedom. We are now free multidimensional travelers. We even can take on many different bodies in different realms and experience freedom of other realms, other worlds, other dimensions. So definitely pay attention to what your experience is at night, because that's when it happens mainly. And so last night, we've been, it's been happening for a really long time that we have these big gatherings in higher realms. And we do different teams, different tasks. Last night we were studying about the new design of cosmos, new design of, now that we don't have the false matrix of divine reality. We were given maps of stars. We were sitting down in kind of a classroom. And the other thing is that we got attacked by a demon. And there was a demon who, in these spaces, looked like a male demon, but not like a man, but a male demon. And he was very powerful. Now, now this is really interesting. And I'm just gonna say here something. And so in these spaces, the demon didn't have the human body, but it was in its own demonic body, and it was a male demon. Now, demons can be very, very powerful beings. Just like we have white magic, black magic is also very powerful. And so this demon had so much energy and so much power that it was really difficult to actually be in this kind of what would you call it? We were definitely in a battle with the demon. And so I was using all my tools and I was trying to summon all the life force in my multidimensional spine. But this demon had so much energy that finally I thought, well, we have one more option left. And it's actually the best option. And that's the option that worked. And somehow in my different state of consciousness, I remembered Divine Mother. Ah, she has the power over all demons. They all actually are always defeated by her. And so we made like a heart song, and I wrote it down how it went kind of in a similar way. It was really, really simple. And we had to sing from our heart out of love, not out of fear, not out of despair, but out of love to Divine Mother, kind of celebrating her power, celebrating her strength. And we were invoking her through our song. This was very simple, so I'm gonna read it as I remember it, but very, very simple, okay? But this is just showing, you know, how the power of love for the mother, and how she then steps in and she's like, okay, with one breath, she just transmuted the demon. So it went like this: Divine Mother, Mother of all angels, come and help us now. Transmute this demon. Only you have the power over all demons. So do that now, please. You are the only one who wins over all darkness. So please do that now. Transmute this demon. So, something like this. And as soon as she came in, our sweet little girl, our queen, she transmuted the demon. No battle, no fight, nothing. She just transmuted the demon. Gone. Poof. Totally gone. In that moment, I actually think what happens next is really, really like, it really puzzled me. I've been thinking about it all morning. The demon was gone, but the body now transformed into a young 16-year-old girl. She had long blonde hair. She was about 16. And so the demon left. And to me, nobody explained it to us what happened, but I explained it to myself. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that was my explanation. That 16-year-old girl was possessed 100%, and I mean like all the way, by a demon. Not just 50%, she was 100% possessed. And the moment Divine Mother transmuted the demon, the girl was liberated, and she was herself, and her true self in this world was not at all evil. So it was the liberation of this being. Now, this was so incredible. So today we've been singing this song, making it up. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it comes from the heart. Truly, singing and remembering that demons do take on bodies, and they do it in two different ways. One is just possession, one is complete taking over, like a walk-in. And so even if a person has a face of an angel, we really don't know what's behind the mask in this world, right? So that's why I would say always paying attention with all senses. Through meditation, we develop a sense, which means we know not only see energy, we hear energy, but the one that is my favorite, we smell energy. So it can happen, and I think it happens a lot, that people are fooled by these beings. And so, yeah, now and again, I look at the chat to answer questions. So I just want to say, even if you remember nothing from what we do at night, it's okay. Soon you will be only experiencing that true divine reality. So some people have a good recall, some people don't. It doesn't matter. It's all happening anyway. Your divine self is doing all that it needs to do. But being able to smell energy is a great skill, which just happens through meditation. And what it has done, for example, for me is, and I'm sure that a lot of people have this ability too, is that when a being is masquerading, so they pretend to be something else, like, oh, I'm Jesus, the mask of Jesus, but they can never mask their smell. I don't know how it works with perfumes in these, nefarious beings, but it doesn't work for them. That's what I can tell you. So, yeah, I think to some extent, we all experience some kind of um, interference with our field, of course, in the false matrix. And it just goes without saying. And very few, I would say, were able to constantly remain free, but they would not be free from attack. For example, like Yogananda, not free from attack at all. The opposite, much more attack because he had so much power. Do they stink? Oh, yes, they stink so bad. You will know. It is really a horrible smell. So very often it can happen that when you meditate and you in this bliss state and you are just finishing Orin and you just reaching these amazing higher states of consciousness, that you will start smelling something around you. And I bet you it's always interference. One thing that I've learned, right, is that they don't go and try so much, you know, to go after people who already are part of their team, meaning they already are behaving in horrible ways. They done deal, but they are always interested in those who have a lot of power through light work and that they haven't really tricked them just yet. And it could be, sometimes they work through relationships, they make people upset, they want conflict. Um, you know, it's so many different ways. But luckily, this is the end of it. I always have a crystal with me, like quartz crystal, and it's good to be constantly like charging yourself now and again, throughout the day with some quartz crystal energy. It's very purifying. They don't like it. They really don't like quartz crystal. Doesn't matter how big it is, how small it is. They hate quartz, clear quartz crystal. I have one that I travel with in my pocket or in my bag, and you can cast light with quartz crystal. It works 100% and they can't stand it. So that is what we are now left with. I don't know how long this will last, but it's definitely, I call them the serpents of darkness, and serpent is life force. So life force is originally rainbow, and that's why we have Divine Mother as the rainbow light. It is the serpent of creation, which is the electromagnetic and mainly magnetic. Sorry, just a moment. So our own life force within us, right? We call it Kundalini, and it's often depicted as a serpent. We want our own personal unit of consciousness to be a serpent of light. And so we also have serpents of darkness. And so those are beings who misuse their life force. And their life force now has the skin of darkness. But that can be shedded and back into light through purification, of course, or in this case of the demon, complete transmutation. So, yeah, what an adventure, right? So, now what we are left with is a little bit of dirt here in this world. We keep cleansing, violet flame, invoking the light of God, singing songs to Divine Mother, but focusing, of course, on the light, focusing on the light, focusing on the new earth, and at the same time knowing that we are still dealing with these serpents of chaos and serpents of darkness, and that the beast of Babylon, who plays also a very important role in our reality, is still around and is also to be transmuted. So again, singing to Divine Mother. Which Orin's meditations are good for this topic? I think the violet flame is always great. So Orin has the cleansing violet flame. So if you ever feel like you are off, the world is off, family is off, always stepping into the violet flame, cleansing and working with Orin. The way that Orin works, right, is always number one, cleansing. Number two, increase your inner light. So always this two-stage process. Now that we have this freedom to be moving through realms, which is incredible freedom, we've had it since December 21st. So what happens is that at night we get to visit many different realms that correspond with our energy. So our energy is always like our passport. You can enter realms that you match energetically, and it could be maybe thousands of them. I mentioned how Dr. Robert Gilbert, who has the show on Gaia, Sacred Geometry, as soon as the false matrix was down, as soon as we were free again, his consciousness decided to depart from this earth, because I'm pretty certain, as the mystic that he is and was, he immediately chose freedom and to be in a different realm. Now, the way that this works, and I hope I can explain it without sounding too complicated. Here in this world, you are in this realm. And the only reason why you are in this realm is because you have a physical body of this realm. So, since you have a physical body, you are in this realm. That means as long as you want a physical body in this realm, you will be coming back in the morning after your night's sleep. If you decide you no longer want to be in this realm, you make a conscious decision, you will no longer be coming to this realm because now you are a free traveler. We no longer have the dictatorship of the false matrix. In the false matrix, we had the illusion of freedom because they wanted us to believe that we are free without being free. But now we are truly free. True freedom is when a being can experience embodiment in any realm that matches their energy and they have choice. So, embodiment is the new game. Reincarnation is the old game. That is no more. Reincarnation, remember, was coming back into flesh, coming back into meat. Carne, meat. Reincarnate means coming back into meat. So we no longer need to be coming into meat. We now have embodiment. That means here in this world, you have a body. It is now your embodiment. When you go to a higher realm, you take on a different body, and it could be a layer of your own being, of course. And so it could be your subtle body, and that will be your embodiment in a different realm. If you want to change realms, which you can, of course, you have the power to be in any realm, in any world, in any dimension that matches your energy, the energy of your consciousness. That is the passport that takes you places. Then you go in different embodiments, in different realms, worlds, and dimensions. And you have this amazing adventure happening right now since December 21st. So that's the first time I got to experience it really full on. And every night, can we take our pets too? I'm hoping that we can absolutely take our pets too. And I keep telling my dogs, you're going to be ascending. So be ready. We're going to a different realm. And so, but the number one thing is like, is this interesting for us? We've lived so long in the false matrix and the dictatorship. The dictator was Satan, and then all his controllers and guards, princes of darkness and lords of the matrix, that was not at all freedom. But now we have freedom. We will not be reincarnating. Matter will change and it will be spiritualized. No more will beings be fooled by the world of matter. No more will matter be a draw. Matter was problematic. And I mentioned on the call before the great creation story in Gnosticism, where Sophia, as a creation frequency, Sophia is the rainbow serpent of creation. She makes an innocent mistake. She pushes the laws of cosmos beyond the boundary where things work. And so it creates a little dysfunction through her own experimentation and maybe not knowing that the experiment will result in the creation of what we call archons. Archons being the beings who actually were very much involved in the creation and controlling of the false matrix. So I think the story of Sophia explains this the best, that we pushed a little too far, and the photons were pushed too far to create a world of such density, such matter. Attachment to matter was very problematic. So, why didn't she fix the mistake right away? You know, we live in cosmos, and in cosmos you have cosmic laws. And these laws are truly the laws of physics. Not exactly the physics that we have here on this planet, because our laws will change to be the laws of divine reality. But there are laws, and these laws work the same way that our gravity, which is actually a force of the false matrix, works in this way. So then, to reverse this mistake, this is what ascension is all about. Ascension is actually repairing the fabric of our reality and returning this world to spirit, to light. So this is the self-correcting mechanism of actually creation. And that's why there was the correction where the being that we call Satan was reunited with the oneness of all life in this very harmonious way. This is all like so big. It is so big. It's amazing. So what's happening right now, right? So we don't have the veil. So I would assume that now everything that we see in this world as this crazy stuff, you have to say it's been really crazy. Since the fall of the Matrix, since the dissolution of the veil, since the piercing of the veil, nothing is hidden anymore. Everything is out in the open. We have to remember also that the beast of Babylon is the being who created the fractals that we call ego. And so if we were infected with ego, which I think all of us got a little infected, right? Some people in this world got very infected with the fractal of ego. So that too has to go through purification. This fractal, just like the divine self is a fractal, the divine self is a fractal of source, and there was a fractal of ego that originated in the beast. So all of this has to be purified. That's why things seem a little chaotic. That's why there is chaos. That's why I think it looks a little crazy. But purification and meditation is the best way forward, and invoking Divine Mother. Always. So I think that is it. I think, covered everything. And so the greatest love that I have ever seen being anchored in this world, in this lifetime, was anchored a few days ago, May 24 and May 25th. And so this love, greater than anything we could possibly even remember, has been anchored here now. A lot of people will feel this. The greatest love is expanding through us. The Space Weather app, I think it's called Space Weather, so it will give you notifications. Anytime you see geomagnetic storms, like G1, G2, G3, G4, it's good to go outside and anchor with your feet, sit outside a little bit, attune. There's big, big shifts within us. So I look forward to be playing Maravati with you on Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific. Please put it in your calendars, set reminders. I'll send an email as well. Please do join. This sound will empower the opening of that door, and the transitions will begin. And then that day, the same day, we will have a Zoom call, and it will be at 5 p.m. Pacific. So please join, and then we'll see what we have to report. Something exciting, surely. So thank you so much for being here. Many blessings as always. And again, We will sound Maravati together on Saturday. So thank you so much.